Hi guys, this is Angela and welcome to my channel. For today's video, I'll be doing some quick 30-minute composition studies based on inspiration from life. My husband discovered this hidden spot via Google Maps. He asked me to come check it out, so I tagged along. I didn't know it would be this beautiful. It almost felt like I was in paradise. I wanted to draw every single view that I saw, and I wanted to share with you guys these beautiful compositions. So I took a lot of photos and footage as reference, and I'll be drawing them today. So I picked out 6 compositions, and I'll be drawing them as line work first. If you want to follow along, pick up your pencil and let's start drawing. So I'll just be going over my line work process with you guys. You'll notice that I really try to simplify the compositions, and I would exaggerate background mountains just so it looks more interesting and it's not as empty as the reference. It's nice to add in these birds flying in the background. It's always a great way to balance the composition. I'm spending around 1 minute on each of these small compositions. I would also zoom in a lot more than what the reference photo provides, so that there's more interest in the composition. So once you're happy with your line work, take out whatever medium that you are happy to work with, whether it's color pencil or oil pastels or acrylic markers. So I'm working with acrylic markers today as usual. I'm testing out the background mountain first by using beige and skin pastel. As for the sky, I'm using vanilla pastel and then pastel yellow, and then gradually blending it with beige. On the right side, I'm adding in light pink in the sky. For the water, I'm first doing a layer of pastel green and then using pastel blue from Artistro. The water is a reflection of the sky, so whatever color you're using for the sky, you would also want to use similar colors for the water. At the very bottom, I'm adding in a little bit of lilac pastel and blending it in with light pink. Once I'm happy with the base layer of gradients, I'm adding in some details, distant ships and a distant lighthouse. I didn't really like how complicated this lighthouse or whatever this is looked, so I covered it up and did it again. I'm adding in some darker shapes. That's actually the edge of a beach. And then I'm adding in some more reflections in the water. The reference photo acts as a basic guide for me. I don't have to follow it 100%, but I can take elements from it that I think will work for my tiny composition. In the end, I'm adding in some birds in the sky. This drawing in total took me 22 minutes and 50 seconds. So the reason why I recommend you timing your drawing and limiting it to 30 minutes is because having a time limit will force you to be more confident in your color decisions, and you will be able to move on from a drawing instead of perfecting it endlessly. So for the next drawing, I'm starting with the key element in the drawing, which is this little lighthouse. I'm not sure if it's a lighthouse, and the large cargo ship on the left and right side of it. I'm using brighter colors than what I see in the reference. Instead of adding the individual blocks on the cargo ship, I decided to merge it into one orange shape. So moving on to the sky, I want to make sure it has contrast against the background mountain. As for the clouds, I'm using pastel purple because I think it will look nice with the beige and the pink that I'm using for the sky. I'm making the cloud shapes much bigger than what I see in the reference, just because I like the more cartoony look of bigger clouds. So I realized the beige doesn't have a great contrast with the background mountain. I'm adding in vanilla, which is a very bright yellow color from Posca, so the silhouette of the mountain can stand out more. At the very top, I'm adding in some pastel blue because I do see a bit of blue and green in the reference, but I decided to cover most of it up with light pink. For the sea, I'm using light blue from Posca, adding some dark strokes near the cargo ship as shadow. And then I'm blending in light pink again, even though realistically the water isn't going to be pink, but I wanted it to reflect the pink that I used in the sky. Just adding in a bit of beige. I have a white bird against the blue in the water and some darker birds in the sky. This drawing took me 26 minutes and 19 seconds. So moving on to the third composition. Because the glow from the sun is so bright in the sky, I wanted to make sure I left the sun white and used my brightest yellow for the glow around it. For the forest in front of the sun, because it's affected by the glow, it has a gradient from dark brown to orange to bright orange. As for the mountain in the right side, because it's affected by the sun as well, I'm using beige, light orange, and skin pastel. I wanted to make sure I have a really saturated sky in this composition because we're staring right at the sun. So I'm using pastel yellow and then blending it upwards with light orange and then a bit of beige at the very top. At the very edge, I'm also adding in light pink just so it looks coherent to the two compositions beside it. As for the water, I wanted it to be darker than the sky, so I started off with light blue and then slowly blended in light pink, adding in a bit of light orange here and there to represent the glow from the sun, and making sure that I leave the sun's reflection in the water completely white. For the land that's in the foreground, at first I used brown, but I felt it was a bit too warm, so I tried to blend in a bit of navy blue and then dark brown. Using blue-violet for the edges that's touching the water to lower the contrast between land and water. And I'm using a white marker to add in the sparkling reflection we see in the center. This drawing took me 26 minutes and 37 seconds. So the next drawing is similar to the one I just did, but a bit later in the day as the sun is setting. So overall, I want it to be a bit darker and have a bit more orange in it. Closest to the sun, on the left side, I'm using bright yellow, which is more of an orange color. And on the right side, I'm using light pink and then blending it in with blue-violet pastel from Molotow. The forest or land on the left side looks a bit darker, so I blended emerald green and navy blue together to form a shape that's darker in value. Now I'm going to work on the gradient in the sky. Like I said before, I wanted this sky to be a bit darker and a bit more orangey than the previous one. So I'm using a color called straw yellow from Posca, which is a new color that I got. It's a saturated light yellow. Before I worked on the gradient in the sky, I wanted to draw in the foliage in the foreground first, because if I covered up my pencil work with my gradient, it would be very hard for me to recreate the original composition I had in mind. Adding in light orange and then eventually moving it to beige and light pink at the top. After I finish the gradient in the sky, I'm using turquoise, which is a desaturated dark blue color from Molotow, as well as blue-violet pastel to draw in the foreground leaves. I felt like there wasn't enough contrast around the sun, so I added in light orange around the sun just so the white of the sun pops a bit more. For the foreground, I'm using slate gray, which is a dark bluish gray color, and then adding in navy blue, which is the darkest blue that I have. I'm using white marker again to adding the reflection of the sun in the water, and finally adding in these lovely little birds in the sky. So this drawing took me 23 minutes and 34 seconds. Moving on to the next drawing, I'm speeding it up a lot more for this one because I actually wasn't really happy with how it turned out. You will see. I'm using light blue and sky blue for the water. At the very bottom, I'm using shock blue from Molotow, which is a bit darker than the sky blue from Posca. For the distant forest as well as its reflection, I'm using navy blue and just blending it in with vertical strokes to form the reflection in the water. For the distant mountain, I'm using shock blue as well as navy blue. So for the distant skyscrapers, I'm exaggerating their size because it's such a small composition. For the sky in this one, I wanted a blue that's lighter than the water, so I'm using pastel blue from Artistro and then blending it in with light blue from Posca. Generally, water is darker than the sky. That's why I tried to use lighter colors for the sky. So I'm adding in Lionsgate Bridge that's lit. I think the key point with this composition is just using white and yellow as highlighters and adding in reflections in the water. Towards the end, I did feel like the sky was a bit too light, so I added in a bit more sky blue in the sky. And this drawing took me 25 minutes and 29 seconds. So moving on to the last drawing. Because I didn't really like how the previous composition turned out, I know for the last one I wanted to keep it really simple and straightforward. Not too much blending, just big shapes and solid blocks of colors. I used sky blue for the water. As for the skyscrapers, I'm using emerald green and using slate gray and navy blue for the darker areas. For areas that's more lit, I added in a bit of pastel green. Pastel green, emerald green, and navy blue, these are all within the same range in terms of hue, just different lightness or value. So for the midground, tree or forest, I'm just using black. Because I already used navy blue in the skyscraper, I needed a darker contrast, so I just went straight for black. So I'm using a pastel yellow from Artistro for the highlights in the skyscrapers, as well as extra fine tip yellow and white from Posca, adding in the window lights. Adding in window lights on skyscraper is actually my favorite thing to do. It's so easy to make it look nice. For the sky, I'm using pastel green. I wanted the sky to look a bit different than the sky in the composition left to it. And finally, just using a white marker to adding more glows of the building. I'm using light blue to adding some reflection in the water, even though it's not in the photo reference. This last drawing actually took me the shortest amount of time. It only took me 19 minutes and 16 seconds. I think towards the end, I just wanted a really simple approach with really big, simple shapes instead of doing so much gradient. So are you guys following along? Did you guys finish your drawings as well? It was nice for me to relax and draw something from life that really inspired me. Hopefully in the future, when I come across more beautiful landscape, I'll be able to take lots of footage as well as photo reference to share with you guys and do similar videos like this one. If this video inspired you to draw, don't forget to like and subscribe as I look forward to uploading more drawing videos on my channel. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.